Okay, so who was the name of the missionary who was responsible for organizing the first translation of the
第
Korean
一个组织
Bible?
翻译朝鲜圣经的宣教士是谁？
Missionary John Ross.
是约翰罗
Yes, that's
素
right. Yes, and if
传教
you
士，没错。
want to see what he looks like, you can look at the picture on the outside of our
如
building.
果你想看他的照片的话，我们的建筑外面有他的照片和他的简介。
And so when I say he organized the translation, he was a missionary to China, as you may recall. He wasn't originally a missionary
当
to
我提
Korea.
他组织翻译朝鲜圣经时，你可能会想起他其实本来计划是去中国宣教的，
But the Lord kept putting Korean people in his
但是
path.
主一直在他去往中国的旅途中，让他遇到朝鲜人。
And so that gave John Ross the heart to translate the Bible into Korean, but of course he didn't know
所
Korean.
以这就给约翰罗斯负担感，要把圣经翻译成朝鲜语。当然，他并不了解朝鲜这个国家是怎样的。
And so he gathered together a group of very unusual Bible
于是他组
translators.
建了一个不太一般的圣经翻译团队。
And these were not the Wycliffe Missionary Bible
这个团队
translator
可
type.
不是像威克里夫圣经翻译会这样的大团队。
These were guys who were, their business was
这些
trading.
人都是专门搞贸易的商人，
Right?
都是
Import
搞
export
进出口生意
business.
的人。
But they were all people that had lost everything. They had really fallen on hard times.
但这些人都经历了一段很艰难的时期，他们都失去了所有的财产，
And so they were desperate for money, and
所以
so
当
they
时他
were
们都
not
非常想赚
Christians.
钱啊。他们当时也不是基督徒，
And so what happened is that John Ross, the only reason they went to work for John Ross is because they needed the
所以
money.
基于经济上的需求呢，他们就开始为约翰罗斯工作。
But it was in the process of translating the Bible that the Lord opened their eyes and revealed himself to
这些人
them.
在翻译圣经的过程里呢，主就开了他们的眼睛，向他们彰显他自己。
And that is how they then came to know Christ, was through the process of
于
translating
是，
the
在
Bible.
翻译圣经的过程里，这些人就都信主了。
And so these guys not only translated the
之
Bible,
后呢，他们不仅翻译了圣经，而且还协助了将圣经走私进朝鲜。
but they also were involved in smuggling the Bible into Korea.
他们后来也是帮助这个宣教士将圣经走私进朝鲜
And。so as they would print the Bible, then these people who are part of John Ross's team, their responsibility was to bring it back
随着
into
他们
Korea.
协助印刷圣经，他们后来就作为约翰罗斯的团队，负责把圣经带进朝鲜。
And so it was on their second attempt, the second group that tried to smuggle the Bibles
在
in.
他们第二次试图走私圣经时，
They came to
他
the
们
border
到达了
between
这
China
个
and
口
Korea.
岸。
It was heavily
他们看
guarded.
见了很多的这个护卫，
They looked at the
他们观
situation
察了一下这个形势，
and they thought,
他们就
wow,
发现
this
哇
is
这太难了。
and so they decided that they would leave the
然后
Bibles behind on the
然后他
China
们就
side.
决定把圣经丢在那儿不管了，就跑掉了。
And so they left the Bibles and
他们把
ran.
圣经放那儿，然后就跑掉了。
So when the innkeeper in China found the
然
Bibles,
后在那里有一个旅店的老板发现了这些圣经，
he took some of the Bibles and he threw them into
他
the river.
把这些圣经拿了起来，看完之后就扔进河里去了。
And he took the rest of the
然后
Bibles
他又把剩下的圣经
and he
一把
burned
火
them.
全给烧了。
So this was missionary John Ross. He used these non-professional, very questionable character translators.
所以这就是约翰罗斯所用的
So yeah,
非
John
专业
Ross
人
used these
士
very
翻译的非专业版本
unqualified
的圣经。
translators.
정말 성경 번역을 하는 것도 별로 이렇게 전문가가 아닌 사람을 사용해서 성경 번역을 하고 또 이렇게 프로처럼 이렇게 성경을 이렇게 밀반입하는 것도 이렇게 프로가 아니었어요.
They did this strange thing where they weren't Christian, but as they translated the Bible, they came to know Christ.
所以这就特别奇怪，这些人他们不信主，却翻译了圣经。
하면서 이렇게 하나님을 알게 되고
And then as they tried to bring the Bibles in, they failed very
他
badly.
们翻译到一半又信主了，又试着把圣经带进一个国家，
잘하지 못했어요.
And all the Bibles were
结
destroyed.
果是失败的很彻底，圣经都没了。
것이 다 그냥 파괴가 된 거예요.
So let's talk about missionary, our second missionary
然后我
figure.
们要来说一下今天要谈到的第二个宣教士，
선교사님에 대해서 한번 얘기해
This was the doctor that we
这是
mentioned. He was
这
the
位是一位医生，
doctor who came in and he knew that it was illegal to do any kind of
这位医生
evangelism
知道在
in
一些地方
Korea.
传福音是非法的，
이 성경을 전하고 하는 것은 이거는 불법이라는 것을 알고 오신 거예요.
But because
但
he
因
was a
为他是个
doctor,
医生，
하지만 의사였어요.
he thought, I think I can.
所以他就想，也许我可以利用这个身份。
기술을 사용해서 뭔가 할 수 있을 거라고
And so do you remember the
你记得
name
他
of
的
who
名字
this
是什么吗？
생각해볼게요.
没错，
That's right. Horace
这是
Allen.
霍拉
That's
斯艾伦。
good.
알렌 선교사님.
So we will not kick Shutagnim out of the church. She got them both right. The rest of you guys are all gone. But so Horace
就是
Allen,
霍
that
拉
was his
斯艾
name.
伦。
Yeah.
알렌 선교사님이에요.
And so Horace Allen, in fact, one of the members of the royal family, one of the princes,
在当时有一位朝鲜皇室的一位王子，
yeah, the Korean royal family.
그때 당시 조선 왕실에 그 왕후의 친척이 있었어요. 조카가.
He got into a sword fight
这
and
个
lost.
这位王子他在一场战斗中刺伤了，
Right, got stabbed
像
over
这
and
样
over.
这个王子被捅了好几剑。
몇 번을 찔렸어요.
And they said, if only we had a doctor. Wait, there's this guy,
然后
Horace
就有人
Allen.
想起来，哎，我们有一位叫做霍拉斯艾伦的医生在这儿。
발견한 거예요. 의사 선교사님이 있는 거예요.
So Horace Allen used the limited things that were available to him, and he saved the life of the prince by the grace of
所以霍
God.
拉斯艾伦就用当时他能够获取的医疗资源，把那个王子给治好了。
선교사님이 이 사람을 살렸어요.
And thus began the start of this success
而
story.
这个呢，就是他成功故事的开始。
And they said, Horace, Dr. Allen, you're such an amazing guy.
皇室的人说，霍拉斯艾伦医生，你真是个好人。
성공을 하고 그 사람을 구해줬기 때문에 알렌 선교사님한테 아유 고맙다고 얘기하면서
So we want to be like you.
我
What
们想
can
要
we
向
do?
你学习，我们该怎么做才能像你一样呢？
물어보냐냐.
And he said, I have an idea. Why don't we build an even bigger
说
hospital?
我有一个好主意，让我们建一个更大的教会，更大的医院吧。
And that was the beginning of Severance Hospital, which
而这个就是现在延世大学旁边 Severance 医院的故事。
how many of you have
你
been
们
to
谁
Severance
去过这个医
Hospital?
院吗？
Because maybe you were stabbed. Anybody stabbed? So what's that? Did you get stabbed, Peter? You did?
哦
No.
哦，彼得，
Your
你
father
的
got
父亲去过
stabbed.
这个医院
I。hope not.
칼을 맞아서
아이고.
죽었대요.
응.
아이고.
So and that is how Severance
所以这
Hospital
就是
was
这个
built.
Severance 医院被建起来的故事。
병원이 생긴 거예요.
And so I want to contrast those two
我今
missionaries
天想要
today.
对比一下这两个宣教士。
두 명의 선교사를 비교했으면
All right. John Ross, the missionary, used the weird translation method, got all of the Bibles thrown
约
away.
翰罗斯翻译了一个蹩脚的圣经，然后还被一把火全烧没了。
번역에 있어서 아주 뭐 상인 같은 그렇게 전문적이지 않은 사람을 하게 하고 그 다음에 성경을 갖고 들어올 때 굉장히 전문적이지 않게 막 불태우는 그런 일이 있게 했어요.
And missionary Dr. Horace Allen
霍拉斯艾伦宣教士，
saved the prince and got the giant hospital
他
built.
救了一个王子，然后建了一个超大的医院。
그 다음에 병원을 세웠어요.
Yeah, so I'd like to contrast
我
those
们
two.
来对比一下这两个人，
선교사님을 우리가 한번 비교해볼게요.
And I would like to tell you something very
然后我想要
strange.
告诉你们一个听起来很古怪的结论。
I would like to tell you that today, most Korean missionaries are the spiritual descendants of Horace
如
Allen.
今大多数韩国的宣教士都可以算是霍拉斯艾伦的属灵后裔了。
알렌 선교사님들이 많은 것 같아요.
And actually, what we need is more Korean missionaries who are the descendants of John
但是
Ross.
韩国的宣教士真正需要的，恰好是成为像约翰罗素这样的人。
존 로스 선교사님들이 더 많은 것 같아요.
Right. So problem today, Korean church has been in numeric decline since 1991.
韩国教会从1991年开始，基督徒的数人数就开始下降的问题所在就是这里。
So we have the church issue to solve and the missionary issue to
教会有许
solve.
多的问题需要解决，宣教士也有许多的问题需要解决。
문제가 지금 해결이 돼야 돼요.
And I want to suggest that the problem is
这所有的事情中的问题就是，
문제는 뭐냐면
that Korean missionaries are the spiritual descendants of Horace
许
Allen.
多韩国的宣教士都是霍拉斯艾伦的属灵的继承者。
And actually what we need is more spiritual descendants of
但我
John
们所需要
Ross.
的呢，却是约翰罗素这样的人。
선교사님은 사실 존 로스 선교사님의 자손이 더 필요해요.
That sounds very backwards, doesn't it, based on how I just described their results of their
这
mission
听起来挺
work.
奇怪的，因为根据我刚分享的两个人的施工的果效，约翰罗斯其实是失败的。
좀 아닌 것 같죠. 사실은 존 로스 선교사님은 실패한 것 같아요.
But I want to explain to you the two very different ways of thinking behind their mission
但我想要
strategies.
分享关于他们宣教策略的不同角度。
It's very simple for me to explain the difference of their missionary strategies for
你们
you.
可以很简单的区分出他们宣教策略的不同。
Right. So missionary John Ross believed
约翰罗素相信，
로스 선교사님은 믿는 것이 이랬어요.
that if we give people
如
the
果我们
Bible
给人们圣经，
성경을 전하면
and they
而人
read
们
the
读了圣
Bible,
经，
그 사람이 받은 사람이 성경을 읽고
God will transform
神就会
them,
改变人的心，
이 성경 읽은 사람의 마음을 변화해서
right? Transform their souls,
改
their
变他们
minds,
的
their
灵
hearts.
魂，改变他们的想法。
마음과 이런 걸 다 변화시키는 거예요.
And the result will be that they will do humanitarian things
结
for
果就
each
是他
other.
们会去
They
做
will show care
很
for each
多
other.
人道主义的一些好的事情。
마음이 변하고 영이 변하면 다른 사람들을 도와줄 수 있는 인도주의적인 그런 일을 할 수 있을 거라고 존 로스 선교사님은 믿은 거예요.
So that is the John Ross
这
mission
就是约
strategy.
翰罗素的宣教策略。
선교 전략은 그거예요.
Sorry. The Horace Allen mission strategy
霍拉斯艾伦宣教士的宣教策略是，
is that you do
我
humanitarian
们先
things
做
for
人道主
people,
义的施工，
사람들에게 인도적인 사역을 하면
and in receiving these humanitarian things, the people say, "You are
借着
amazing."
人道主义的施工呢，人们会说啊，你真是个好人。
사람이
Right? You're
선교사님한테 오 대단한
there's
분이에요.
something different
음,
about
이거
you.
别人不太一样啊。
Something is,
사람 안 돕는데 여기 선교사님이 이렇게 선하고 도와주세요.
and then they will say, "Explain to me
他们
why."
会说，你可以告诉我们为什么你不一样吗？
이유를 얘기하는 거예요. 내가 왜 이렇게 됐는지.
And then you will
然
give
后
them
你就
the
可以给他
Bible.
们圣经
그 。 사람에게 이렇게 성경을 주는 거예요.
You see the difference? Did you
你们
catch
明
that?
白
Does
其
that
中的
make
区
sense?
别吗？
그 차이를 아시겠어요?
Right. So in the John Ross strategy, you're giving the
约
Bible to
翰罗
people.
斯的策略是给人们圣经，
제일 먼저 성경을 주는 거예요.
Right. God is transforming
神
their
转
hearts as they
变
read
他
the
们的
Bible.
心，
통해서 하나님이 변화를 시키는 거예요.
And as a result of the transformation of their heart, they do
结果就是
humanitarian
他们
things
开始做
for
好
other
事。
people.
변화시킨 그 결과로 인해서 우리가 성경을 읽은 사람이 다른 사람을 도와주는 거예요.
So Horace Allen's strategy, you do humanitarian
霍拉
things
斯
for
艾伦的
people.
策略呢，是你先要做好事，
선교사님은 먼저 사람들을 내가 도와주는 거예요.
They're so amazed at the
人
person
们
that
就会
you
因为
are.
你的行事为人而震惊。
이 선교사님이 대단하네, 좋은 사람이네 이렇게
They say, "Why are you
你
so
们会说
amazing?"
啊，你人怎么这么好呀？
You, s-
어떻게 이렇게 좋은 사람이세요?
you say the answer
然
is
后
in
你就
this
可以
book.
说，答案就在这本书里。
그 답은 여기 성경에 있습니다.
And thus they became so interested, they then
然
read
后
the
那些
book.
人就会因为特别好奇而开始读这本书。
네, 그러면서 읽을 거라고 생각하는 그런 선교 전략을 가졌어요.
So two
所
very
以这是
different
两个非
strategies.
常非常不同的策略。
굉장히 다른 선교 전략이에요.
And we could describe them that way and say it's really good. We
我们可以
have
说
both.
这两个策略都挺好的。
이 두 개가 다 좋다라고 할 수 있어요. 두 개 다 역할을 하니까.
And yet what I've said to
但是我
you
想说的就是，
저는 이렇게 말씀드리고 싶어요.
is that the problem we have in the Korean church
韩国
today
教会如今的问题就是，
지금 상황의 문제가 뭐냐면
is that we have too many spiritual descendants of
我们
Horace
有
Allen
太多像霍拉斯艾伦宣教士这样的人，
알렌 선교사님의 그 자손들이 너무 많다는 거예요 지금.
and we need more spiritual
但
descendants
我
of
们
John
很需
Ross.
要约翰罗斯这样的人。
그 선교사님의 자손들이 더 영적인 그런 자손들이 더 많아야 되는 거예요.
And the question
问
is
题是
why?
为什么呢？
그 답은 왜 그러냐면
And I want to say, let's look at the results of the Horace Allen
我想
type
请大家
mission
来看一
strategy.
下霍拉斯艾伦宣教事工如今的成果。
어떤지 봅시다.
Now let's go back to the story I told you just a
我
moment
们来回
ago.
顾一下刚才讲的故事，
안내 선교사님은 그 이야기를 했어요.
Let's rewind the tape.
就
We're going to
像导
watch
带
it
一样，
again.
回想一下刚才讲的故事。
만약에 영화라면 이렇게 막 테이프를 돌려가지고 이제 보는 거예요.
The prince gets stabbed.
一个王子被捅了，
민영익 씨가 이렇게 그분이 이렇게 칼에 찔렸어요.
Horace Allen does his thing.
霍拉斯艾伦来了，把他治好了。
하거든요. 그래서 호르스 알렌 선교사님 가서 치료를 해줬어요.
And the prince is
王子
healed.
恢复了，
그리고 이분이 치유받았어요.
And so Horace Allen has done the
霍拉斯艾
humanitarian
伦
thing.
做了一件好事儿，
알렌 선교사님이 휴메니테리언 인도주의 여기 사역을 한 거예요.
And they
然
respond.
后人们说
결과가 뭐냐면
You are
霍
so
拉斯艾伦
amazing. You are so
啊，你实
great.
在是太棒了，
선교사님 대단하십니다. 놀랍습니다.
Just like the strategy should
就
be.
是霍拉斯艾伦的策略应该的样子。
한 거예요.
And then they say, so how can we be
人们
like
开始问
you?
霍拉斯艾伦：“我怎么做才能像你一样呢
처럼 될까요? 우리가 이렇게 물어봤어요.
And Horace says, ？”
霍拉斯艾伦的回答是
let's build a bigger one of those：“
让我们建造一
humanitarian
个更
things.
巨大的医院，以做更多人道主义的好事吧。
답을 하려고 하다가 답을 한 게 더 큰 병원을 지읍시다. 이렇게 얘기해요.
And so you see, the humanitarian deed ”
所以你看到人道主义行为
그 행동이
leads to the bigger
引导
humanitarian
人去
deed.
进行更大规模的人道主义行为。
적인 사역을 하게 된 거예요.
And
然而，
the
그리고
kind of gets left.
然而圣经却被扔到一边去了。
그냥 잊어버리게 돼요.
So yeah, but Pastor Foley, kind of when you compare the two, we talk about John Ross, what you've got is a bunch of Bibles in a river and burned
你可能
up.
会说，有道理。但是弗里牧师，当你对比一下，约翰的事工简直是惨不忍睹的。他印了一堆圣经，然后圣经还被烧掉了。
Right? And when you talk about Horace Allen, you've got Severance
而当你
Hospital.
说到这个霍拉斯艾伦的时候，我们能看到超大的这个 Severance 医院。
And I mean, Peter was just saying his dad was there, got stabbed apparently. and
彼
went
得还
to
说他父亲在那里
Severance
做了指甲手
Hospital.
术
Yes,
呢。
so
그리고 피로도 세브란스 병원 가서 치료받았어요. 그 아버님도.
So I want to talk about that
所
for
以
just
我
a moment.
想说，
이 부분에 대해서 한번 생각해 봅시다.
I've been to Severance
我
Hospital. It's
去
a
过那
great
个医
hospital.
院这是一个很棒的医院。
대단한 아주 좋은 병원이에요.
But however, Severance Hospital today is not known primarily for it being a Christian
但是如
hospital.
今的 Severance 医院不再是以基督教为核心价值的医院了。
그런 병원으로 알려져 있지는 않아요.
And in fact, when we look at the missionaries that came to Korea and they built schools and
事实
hospitals,
上，我们从历史中可以看到很多宣教士来到韩国建造学校和医院。
we have schools like Ewha
我们有
University,
梨花女
Yonsei
子大学、
University,
元氏大学，
학교 많잖아요. 선교사들이 세운
Some
학교가.
有
great
许多很
schools.
棒的学校。
학교예요.
Not, however, today known primarily as
但他
Christian
们中
schools.
绝大部分都不再是基督教学校了。
기독교 학교라고 그렇게 알려져 있지는 않아요.
And if we were to go north of the
而我
DMZ
们
그
到这个 DMZ 的北面去看的话，
지의 그 북쪽으로 가면
to visit the schools and hospitals that were started by
参观那
missionaries,
些由宣教士建立的学校和医院，
학교나 병원들이 꽤 있어요.
we could go to the
我们
Jesus
可以
High
去参
School.
观。
I'm just
这
making
名字
up
是
a
我
name,
编
I'm
的
calling it the。
比如
Jesus
说，
High
我们
School.
去看耶
Started
稣
by
高
the
中
missionary Jesus High
或者
School.
耶稣大学。
Go to the Jesus University
그리고 예수님 대학교 있고요. 약
and
지어보자면
go
或者
to
我
the
们去
Jesus
看耶稣医
Hospital.
院。
만약에 예수님 병원을 간다면
Except for today,
但是
오늘 except for today
但是如今他们就不再叫这名字
they are
了。
not called the Jesus High School, University, and Hospital. They're not called the today.
而如今他们就不再叫这种名字了。
그 선교사에 의해서 학교가 이렇게 세워졌다면 오늘날에는 그 기독교 학교로 알려지지 않았다는 거예요. 기독교의 그 아이디가 정체성이 없어졌다는 거예요.
They are called the Kim Il-sung
他
High
们现在都
School,
改成了叫，比如说金日成学校、
그들이 김일성 학교로 변했어요.
the Kim Il-sung University,
김일성 대학교가 되고
and the
或
Kim
者金日
Il-sung
成医
Hospital.
院。
김일성 병원이 됐어요.
You see, all of those great humanitarian
所以你看到
works
所有的这些人道主义事工，
인도주의 사역의 그러한
which were done to
我们
people
就是我们对这些人做的这些事工，
which originally had their roots in
也许
Christ,
让一些人归向主，
사역들이 사실은 그리스도 위에 세워진 그런 사역들인 거예요.
today have become then transferred to the government or to private, primarily non-Christian
但这些
oriented
事工的结果，它这些机构却成为了现在政府旗下的机构，或者成为了私人的非基督教的机构。
사람들의 그러한 그 뿌리로 변한 거예요.
such that even though many of them still continue
虽然其中的
today,
一些仍然健在，
그 선교사님들이 세운 것들이 계속되더라도요.
Jesus has been removed from them either partly or
但是耶稣的
completely.
真理却被部分或者全部拿走了。
그 학교나 병원에 예수님이라는 그 단어가 없어진 거예요.
This isn't to tear apart
当
Horace
然
Allen.
我讲这些的目的，
It is not to criticize
我讲
Horace
这些的
Allen.
目的，并不是为了要批评霍拉斯艾伦。
그걸 비평하는 것이 아니에요.
Although it's interesting to note that Horace Allen went home in 1905 after ending up in a fight with his
我
mission
在得知
agency.
霍拉斯艾伦在1905年建立了许多宣教机构后回国，也感觉挺有意思的。
호르스 알렌 선교사님은 1905,
1905.
1905년도에 떠나셨어요.
But it is to note that that strategy of doing humanitarian things to people in order to open the way for the Bible has not
但是要
worked.
知道，用人道主义的方法进行宣教，其实并没有真正奏效。
사역을 한 것이 그렇게 열매를 맺지 못한다는
It has opened the door for more and more
这
humanitarian
种方
aid,
法让越来越多的人道主义事工得以进行，
더 하기 위한 문이 열리는 거예요.
and to a whole way of thinking about missions that removes the Bible from the center of
但
that
是如果我
picture.
们从整体来看问题，这种策略其实是把圣经从这些事工中拿走了。
그런 것들이 다 사라지는 거예요.
So I want to go back to missionary John
现
Ross
在
for a
我想
moment.
回到约翰罗斯这里，
Last we saw John Ross in our
我
story.
们讲了约翰罗斯的故事。
존로스 선교사님이 어떻게 했다는 거를 얘기를 했는데요.
He was there, and the missionaries had come back and said, "Hey, we left the Bibles. They got thrown in the water. They got thrown in."
约翰在那边，然后宣教士对他说：“我们把圣经带过去了，但是圣经被扔进河里，剩下的还被烧掉了。
맞습니다 그랬어요.
Do you know what John
你
Ross's
知道约翰
response
罗斯
was?
是怎么回应的吗？
선교사님의 그 답이 뭔지 아세요?
This will give you a chance, Shittingnim, to go 3 for 3. His response was to give thanks to
他
the
说
Lord.
感谢主。
하였어요.
He said
他
this.
说
이렇게 얘기했어요.
He said the Bibles that ended up in the
他
river
说那本被扔进河里的圣经
그 성경은
are the water of
会
life.
成为生命的活水。
생명의 water of life, 생명의 물이다.
The Bibles that ended up
那些被
burned,
烧毁的圣经，
their ashes have become the fertilizer which will fertilize the Korean
灰
church.
烬会成为韩国教会成人的养分。
남겨진 거다. 이렇게 됐어요.
Did you catch that? He's talking about the Bibles that were intercepted and
他在讲那些
destroyed.
被毁掉的圣经。
이 성경이 그냥 이렇게 다 destroy, 파괴가 됐잖아요.
And of course, in the Bible, it says that the Word of God never returns empty. It always accomplishes the purpose that
当
God
然，在
has
圣
for
经
it.
里面，神的工作永远不会白做，都是有果效的，背后都是有神的旨意的。
항상 하나님의 목적을 이룬다는 거예요. 하나님의 말씀은.
And so John Ross's understanding that he received from the Lord through the Word
约
of
翰
God
罗斯从神的话语里面领受了这点，他明白这一点，
통해서 성경에서 그러한 진리를 깨달은 거예요.
was that even the Bibles that get intercepted, thrown in the water, burned in the fire, accomplish a purpose that the Lord
即使那些
intends.
圣经被扔掉、被烧掉，但是这件事情仍然可以达成神的某些旨意。
중단되고 그 다음에 강에 던져지고 불에 태워져도
And so let's find out if John Ross was
让我们
right.
来
하나님의 목적을
找找约翰罗斯做对的地方。
사실 그렇게 됐어요.
John Ross and his team
约翰罗斯的团队
선교사님과 팀은
went on to, through their smuggling operation, went on to bring the first 15,000 Bibles that ever entered Korea.
这个团队，他们带了15000本朝鲜语的圣经去往朝鲜。
조선어 성경을 조선에 들여보낸 분이에요.
when the famous missionaries Appenzeller and Underwood showed up
之
in
后，
Korea,
当很有名的宣教士阿彭策勒和安德伍德到达朝鲜之后，
선교사님이 도착했어요, 정식으로.
and they got there, and Appenzeller said to Underwood, "What do you want to do, Underwood?" And Underwood said to Appenzeller, "I don't know. What do you
阿
want
彭
to
策勒
do?"
问安德伍德说：“你想怎么做？”安德伍德说：“我也不知道。”
While they were having this discussion, a long line of Korean people formed
然
in
后在
front
他
of
们
them.
讨论的时候呢，他们发现一大群朝鲜人在跟着他们，
사람들이 길게 줄을 쥐고서는 이분을 찾아온 거예요.
And they were all carrying these
然后他们每个人
Bibles.
都带着一本圣经。
길게 줄 선 사람들이 다들 성경을 갖고 있는 거예요.
And they said, according to this Bible, we need you to baptize
他们说，根据
us.
这本书的内容，我们需要你给我们施洗。
저희가 세례를 받아야 되는데 세례를 좀 주세요.
And so Appenzeller and Underwood thought, well, surely this is some mistake. I mean, let's do some investigation and find out if they're really ready to be baptized. Let's do some doctrinal
阿
questioning.
彭策勒和安德伍德这一听，第一反应是你们肯定是搞错了。然后他们就说，让我们测试一下你们，考你们一些基本的这个教义问题。
것에 대해서 질문을 해서 체크업을 해야 되겠다.
And so they investigated the people, and they found that they understood
结
the
果两
gospel.
个宣教师给他们做了测试，发现他们完全明白福音是怎么回事儿。
정말 복음을 알고 와서 세례를 하려고 하는 거예요.
And there was no reason not to
他们发
baptize
现
them.
没有理由不给他们施洗。
세례를 주지 않는 이유가 없었던 거예요.
And so this is why Korea is unique in all of the world's history when it comes to
这就
missionary
是
work.
朝鲜在宣教事工方面与全世界其他国家都不太一样的原因。
사실 이 조선, 한국이 굉장히 특이한 나라입니다.
Because Korea is the first country where the Bible arrived before the missionary.
朝鲜是第一个圣经比宣教士更早来到的国家。
성경이 도착한 나라가 우리 조선입니다.
And God laid the foundation of the Korean
是
church
神在朝鲜
이 조선
建立了教会的根基，
한국의 기독교를 그 성경으로 세워주셨다는 거예요.
on the foundation of
这
the
根基
Bible.
是在圣经上建立的。
한국 기독교, 조선 기독교가 세워졌습니다.
And that is why the first Korean
所以这就
Christians
是为什么第一个朝鲜的基督徒，
didn't say, well, I'm a Presbyterian Christian. How about
他
you?
没有说我是长老会的基督徒，你呢？
당신은 어느 교회 다니세요? 이러지 않았다는 거예요.
No, no, no. I'm a
不
Methodist
不，我是
Christian.
监理会的，
감리교회예요.
Oh, actually,
啊，
I'm a
我是
Baptist
浸信会
Christian.
的。
What they said
但是
was,
他，
I am a
但是第
Bible
一个
Christian.
朝鲜的基督徒说我是圣经的基督徒。
성경 기독교인입니다. 이렇게 대답을 한 거예요. 성경 기독교인.
and in the earliest days of the Korean church, the late 1880s
那
to
在更早期，
1890s,
在1880到或者1890年这段时间，
90년대 뭐 가면 갈수록
this is how Korean Christians called
这个朝鲜的基
themselves.
督徒就是这样称呼自己的，
기독교인이
圣经的基督徒。
갈수록 자기 자신을 성경 기독교인이라고 불렀어요. 어느 교단의 기독교인이 아니라
Bible Christians.
성경
圣经基督
It
徒。
is, by the way, this is a sermon we need to preach another day, but this is also, by the way, Kim Go-shin's point that he would make much later, that we weren't Presbyterian, Baptist, and Methodist Christians, we were
顺带一说，这个讲到我们改日还会再讲。不过这一点也是金教陈宣教士的观点，就是说，我们不是长老会，也不是监理会，也不是浸信会的基督徒，我们其实是圣经的基督徒。
That's why he didn't like the title non-church movement because it didn't get to the point. That's not the
这也是
point
为
he
什么
was trying to make. He was saying that the most important thing is that we are
这也
Bible.
是为什么他不喜欢如非教会运动这种标题，因为这不是他的理念。他认为最重要的事情就是我们要成为圣经的基督徒。
So if we go back north of the DMZ again
所
today
以如今，如果我们回到 DMZ 看的话，
하면 오늘날 보면요.
and we ask which missionary's work has
我们去看一
endured,
看，
위치 미션을
我们去看一看哪个宣教士的工作，
right, which missionary has had his work be able to
我
endure,
们
which
去看一看哪
missionary's
个
work
宣教
has
士的工
lasted.
作做到了持续到至今。
We would find that all of the hospitals and schools and so forth have been renamed, and
我们
Jesus
会
has been
我们会
removed
发现
from
那些
them.
教会学校啊、教会大学、教会医院的名字被改掉，耶稣被赶了出去。
학교나 뭐 병원 이런 것들이 이제 있었잖아요. 그런 것들이 다 잊혀졌어요.
Or Jesus' name can't be
或者在
mentioned
那
in
里
those
都
places.
不能提耶稣的名字。
없어졌어요.
But the one missionary's work that has stood the test of time in
但
North
是有一个
Korea,
宣教士的宣教工作经受住了时间的考验，
원
只有
the,
一
the
个，
only missionary
只有一个宣教士的宣教工作经受住了时间的考验，
is missionary John
那就
Ross.
是约翰罗斯宣教士。
Because John Ross's strategy
因为约翰罗斯的策略
그 선교 전략은
was always to give people
是
the
让人们
Bible.
先得到圣经。
사람들에게 성경을 전하는 거야. 성경을
There wasn't even a pastor that came
那
with
些
the
得到圣经的
Bible.
人甚至都不是牧师，
오셔서 성경을 전하는 것이 아니라
There wasn't even a church building
他
that
们也
came
没有
with
建
it.
起教会的建筑。
교회가 세워져서 교회에서 성경을 주는 것이 아니라
You see, because even the strategies that relied on pastors and church buildings, even those strategies have been
那些
destroyed in
我
North
们发现那
Korea.
些把策略建立在牧师
The
和
only missionary whose strategy has
只有那些
endured
把圣经作为唯一根基的宣教策略的工作留存了下来。
있었던 거는
is the only missionary who trusted for Jesus to appear simply through this book.
那些对，只有把圣经作为唯一根基的策略的宣教工作，被留存了下来。
See, you can take Jesus out of a
你可以
hospital building.
把耶稣带出医院的大楼
You，can take Jesus out of a hospital building
그 예수님의 이름을 병원에서 이렇게 없앨 수 있어요.
and replace him
然
with
后
Kim
用
Il
今日
Sung.
城去命名它。
일성 이름으로 넣고
You-
일성 병원이라고 할 수 있어요.
You can take Jesus out of
你
a
可以
school
把耶
building
稣带出学校的大楼，
에서도 예수님 이름을 없앨 수 있어요.
and replace
然
him
后
with
重
Kim Il
新命名
Sung.
这个学校叫做今日城。
But you can't take Jesus out of
但是你
this
无法
book.
把耶稣的名字从圣经里面拿出去。